Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Body Language. Tonight you're going to learn some things about yourself that you probably never ever considered. You'll learn some things about your friends, your relatives, your co-workers, your neighbours, and even your boss that you never ever knew existed. Things you might have seen over the years but never knew what they meant. And we're going to show you some ways that you can work out what somebody's really thinking regardless of what they say to you, as we look into this world of body language, this world of silent command. So I guess the first question should be, what's your body language like? Did you notice how many people had their arms crossed when the cameras and lights went on? Let's have a look around. How many people have got their arms crossed right now? You know, when I first walked in and the lights went on, most people thought, what's going to happen? Is he going to ask me a question? Is he likely to get me up there for a demonstration? This is what we call a negative defensive gesture. Now, most body language is so ingrained that most people can't unlearn it. Let me show you what I mean. Can I ask everybody to cross your arms? Now, 7 out of 10 Australians cross left over right. Have a look at yours. Now, so ingrained is body language, you know it's practically impossible for you to unlearn that gesture. Try now to cross your arms around the other way. See how you go. Most people can't even uncross them the other way. Now, the problem with this gesture... Now, can you please uncross your arms? Oh, good. The problem with this gesture is that the research shows that if I'm speaking with you and I cross my arms, that my receptiveness to what you're saying goes down by up to 40%. And that most of the statements that I will make to you will be negative. So does that mean then, the girl at the bus stop at the introduction who had her arms crossed, does that mean she was negative? What do you think? No, she was cold because she was standing in a cold situation. One of the biggest mistakes that people make with body language is to try and take one gesture and try and put a meaning on it. Now, body language is like any language. There's words, sentences, phrases, and punctuation. You've got to take a series of words to get a full understanding as to what each individual word means. And with body language, it's the same. We've got to take what we call clusters of gestures, so that when you see them happen, they'll come in such a predictable sequence that you'll get a feeling that the person may not be telling you the truth. For example, if you ask me a question, as I respond to your question, I begin to rub my nose. What do you think that could mean? Well, it could mean I'm telling lies. Anything else? Itchy nose. What else? I could be stalling for time, yes. Anything else? No, I haven't got a cold. No. If I had a cold, it'd look like this under the wrist. What you said correctly is that one gesture can mean perhaps a dozen different things, just like one word can mean many different things. It could mean that I'm telling you a lie when it's put into a cluster. For example, if somebody's telling a lie, this is one of the gestures that they will use. Other gestures include, if I'm going to tell you a big lie, there's a good chance I'll rub my eye and look at the ground. For example, sounds like a great idea to me, John. You can certainly count on my support. Another gesture that I might use, if I'm telling you a lie and I suddenly think that you suspect that as you found me out, here's one of the gestures you'll see. For example, I posted that check on Thursday. So when it comes in a sequence, if you ask me how I felt about your presentation or what you're saying, and I said I think it's a great idea, I think you've done a terrific job and you've got a tremendous future, you may not believe me, is that right? Okay. The question that people ask a lot is, what is the origin of body language? Where does it come from? Well, it comes from a number of different sources. For example, we cross our arms because it's basic body protection. It protects our heart and lungs area. There are gestures such as this one here that we call the OK gesture. Now, this has its origin in an American presidential campaign in the 1820s. And OK was the initials of the candidate. And he started a trend that said you're OK with OK. Now, he didn't win, but that initial has stuck with us, and today in this country we use that for O. This gesture here means what to you? Yeah, that's OK, she's all right. It goes back to the days of the Roman gladiators. They'd be fighting in the ring. The winner would hold the sword over the head of the loser and look to the crowd for guidance. If the crowd did that, they meant hold the sword up, he's okay. And they spared him. Yet there's other gestures such as smiling, for example. Why do we smile? Now, smiling has its origin in fear. When two monkeys would meet, they would draw the lips back like that, each showing that the other was fearful of the other. Therefore, each was subordinate and non-threatening. Make sense? Now, modern man does the same thing. If I meet you, I will smile. So therefore, you'll interpret me as non-threatening and find me acceptable. What happens if I meet you and I don't smile? You're what? Suspicious? What about this gesture? Yes. That's a yes gesture. Is that used as yes throughout the world? No. No, it's not. You know what the origin of this is for yes? No. No, you don't. Its origin is in bowing. That is, if I'm subordinate to you, I will bow, correct? The more subordinate I am, the lower I will bow in relation to you. Hat tipping is another version of making myself smaller to be subordinate, and that's the origin, of course, of saluting. It's a symbolic hat tip. So, if I agree with you as we speak, my head makes this movement, correct? So it's a stunted bowing movement. Because it's a bowing movement, I'm subordinate to you. Because I'm subordinate to you, I will go along with whatever you want, so we use it as affirmation. What does this gesture mean? That's negative. This is the first gesture that every human being learns. When you're born, you put on the breast to drink. When the baby's had sufficient milk, what movement does it make with its head? It makes this gesture, so it rejects the food. Now, any child you try to feed it, what happens? Look at the screen, we'll see what happened to baby Paul. Now, his mum trying to feed him. He doesn't want to know. So very quickly, we all learn that shaking our head from side to side is no. Let me give you the words and tone of voice that match those gestures. If I... What's your name, sir?
Peter.
Peter. Let's say, for example, that I like what Peter said, and I agree. Which way does my head move if I like him? And I agree. Up and down, without even thinking. It looks like this. Peter, yes, I think that's a tremendous idea. You're on the right track, and you can count on my support. The gesture confirmed the tone of voice and the words. Is this correct?
Yes.
If I didn't like Peter, didn't like what he had to say, which way would my head go without even thinking? Peter, I mean, you've got to be kidding. I mean, there is no way in no that that's going to get off the ground. I will not help you. Now, in real life, it doesn't happen that way. You know why? Because when I was a kid, I was taught not to tell lies on one hand. On the other hand, I was taught to be a prolific liar when Mum taught me to be polite. Polite means tell lies. Now, I haven't got the heart to tell Peter I don't like what he's presenting because he's my friend, or he's my boss, or he's my neighbour, he's my uncle. So I better be polite. Here's how it looks if I try to be polite and cover up. Peter, I think that's a great idea. It's got tremendous potential. It really has. You can certainly count on my support. Now, it only looks funny because we looked at the two most basic elements of movement. We analysed their backgrounds. I gave you the words and tone of voice that matched. Now you're noticing that the gesture is completely contradicting the words. Now, fellas, how many times have you been at a party and you've said to a lady something really cool like, how about coming up to my place for a cup of coffee? And she said, I'm not like that at all. How many times have you missed that? Of course I'll respect you in the morning. Of course. Now, if height gives positiveness and lowering is subordinate, does it follow then that tall people must be more influential than short people? Well, who believes that tall people give greater power and more influence than short people? Hold your hand up. Who believes that tall people do not exert more influence than short people? All the short people. You don't believe that, sir? Can I have you at the front here, please? And come on out here. Come on. Okay, come on out here. What's your name?
Bob.
Please give Bob a big welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Bob says he doesn't believe that tall people exert more pressure than short people. Now, Bob's taller than me. If this is correct, he should be exerting influence over me right now, correct? Let's put it to the test. Okay, this is your microphone, Rob. Just hold it right there. You got it? Now, here's the scene. You've delegated a task to me, and I've ruined the task. And you're about to really let me have it and tell me off. Now, not yet, not yet. Not yet. To make this work, what I'm going to do, I'm going to lay on the floor. Here I go. And just stay right there. Would you agree that in this position, I'm about as low as I can be in relation to Bob? Now, he's about as tall as he can be. Now, with a pointed finger, you tell me what a fool I am and tell me where to get off. Let me have it.
You idiot! You buggered up that job! You know everything about body language?
Let me have it.
You're a real numbskull, me then!
Okay, right.
Why don't you get up off the floor?
So he had no difficulty in telling me off. He had the maximum height advantage, and I was at the minimum. Now, would you agree that he could do that really easily then? Yeah. Okay. Would you mind laying on the floor? You're down there this time. Let's reverse the role and see how he does. Now, Bob is as low as he can be in relation to me, and I have the maximum height advantage. Now, what I want you to do now is to give me the same treatment. Let's see if you can do it. Go.
You idiot! Who do you think you are?
Come on, give it to him.
You know everything about body language, don't you?
Give him a big hand, ladies and gentlemen. Come on. Go and take one. Let me ask you this question. Who's had this experience? You've listened to somebody speaking. You've walked away and you've said to yourself, that sounded really convincing, but I got a gut feeling you can't believe a word of it. Who's had that feeling? Most of us have. Sometimes we might say, I've got a sixth sense, I've got a hunch, and the girls all say, my intuition tells me you can't trust that person. So what does it mean? Well, the research is quite incredible. It shows that when you and I are speaking face to face, that we're relying on the words that we use only a maximum of 7% of the time to put the message across. The gestures and what we call body language accounts for somewhere between 60 to 80% of the message it's sent. Now, if I try to tell you a lie or cover up, my gestures will no longer match my words. They go out of kilter. And a perceptive person will pick up that discrepancy and get a hunch or gut feeling, I'm not being honest. Does that make sense to you? Yes. Let's put you to the test. We'll see how perceptive you are. Here's the scene. You're in a home. And there's children playing outside. All of a sudden, you hear smashing glass and bottles. You race outside. Here's one little boy all on his own, head down, hands behind his back. Your question is, did you do that? To which he replies, no, it wasn't me. Question, hold your hand up if you suspect it was him. Aha. Here's another question. Do you then take your course of action based on the gesture or based on the words? Who would act on the gesture? Most of us. So in other words, if a gesture contradicts the words, we'll make our decision on what we see. Is this right? Now this is what perceptive, intuitive people are doing to us all the time, and we're doing it to them. When we're speaking to them, we're watching their gestures, listening to the sounds and words. The moment we see gestures and words that do not compute, we ignore the words and make our decision on what we call our gut level feeling. If you ever known a hunch or gut level feeling about a person, when you're face to face with them, to be wrong, aren't they usually right? Aha. Now the origin of this hand to mouth gesture is quite simple. Child tells a lie, brain instructs the hand, cover the mouth. Stop the words from coming out. Now that same gesture is carried through in adulthood. That's why it's hard to believe somebody who's selling you a second-hand car, for example, who says, it's a great car, it's only done 25,000 kilometres and has a reconditioned motor. You would walk out of there and say, I've got a gut feeling you can't believe what that person's saying, without really knowing why you knew that. Okay, well, what other signs should we look for? What about our palms? What about our hands? If you want to be honest with me and tell me the truth, what gesture will you show at me? Try it. Open palms. Without even thinking, if you're going to be honest, you are programmed to turn your palms towards me. So the first thing to look for, if somebody's telling you the truth, are their palms visible? Because if I tell you the truth, my palms will be turned towards you. If I don't tell you the truth, they'll be out of sight, behind my back, in my pocket. So if I say to you, look, this is the truth, you can believe me, you can believe every word I say. I've always had a healthy respect for you, of course, and this is the truth. Now, there was a contradiction in the middle of a sentence, and this is what happens. We get contradictions and truth in the same sentence. Now, another thing we can do with our palms is to use it as an indicator. For example, if I talk and indicate with my palms up, I'm in a subordinate position. This is what we call a no weapons held position, which goes back 1 million or so years to the caveman era. They'd all hold their palms out, so each could see that there are no weapons held in the hand or concealed under the arms. That's why when I speak and hold my hands out like that, you will find me easygoing, relaxing. For example, if I said, now we want everybody on this side of the room to move across here, everybody there to move across there, and you people to come across here, would you feel threatened in any way by that request? No. What about if I changed it and tried this with the same tone of voice and words? I want everybody on this side of the room to move across here. The people on there, I'd like you to move over there. And you people, if you can go back over here. What do you feel I just told you to do it? Who felt an order? Aha. So all I did then was turn my palm from that position to that, and suddenly You felt I was telling you what to do. Is this right? Question, what sort of person are you? Do you talk with your palms up? Do you talk with your palms down? Who are the easiest people to talk with? Palms up. People with their palms down irritate people. Let's try the third method of pointing, what we call finger pointing. Now, what you here on this side, if you can go across and sit over there. You people there, I'd like you to sit right across there. What did you feel then? You better do it or else. It wouldn't matter how much I smiled or how happy I sounded. See, this is what we call a baton gesture. It comes in 3 delicious flavours. We get this one here that's called a baton, with which I'm going to hit your stupid, thick, idiotic head to knock a bit of sense into you. But because I'm his boss, I can't treat him that way. I smile and say, we're going to get on really well, I can see that. It's going to be great. Now, there's a second version that goes this way. Now, this is a problem, because where this is an intimidation signal, this is a danger signal. This is the movement that comes immediately before this. So in fighting, it goes from this to this to this. Let me show you how I can introduce somebody to you. What's your name, please?
Kerry.
Kerry. Come on out here with me, Kerry. Let's say, in this example, that I was going to introduce Kerry to you. There are 3 ways I can introduce you to you. Watch carefully what I do with my hands and see if you can gauge my attitude towards her. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my wife, Kerry. What do you see? Open palm, perhaps? There is a subordinates relationship between us, and I'm the subordinate one. What about if I said, ladies and gentlemen, this is my lovely wife, Kerry? And she'll do as she's told, right? What about, ladies and gentlemen, this is my lovely wife, Kerry, this lady right here. And as soon as I get her alone, there is one more signal that's worth looking at. In this country, if we think something has low status, that is, it's a bit of a joke, we shake our thumb at it and say, that over there. How about, ladies and gentlemen, let me present Kerry to you. Like, take a look. Thanks, Kerry. Give her a big hand. The other way we can use our hands is what's called a handshake. Now, when you shake hands with somebody for the very first time, you get one of 3 very distinct gut-level feelings. 1, you feel equal. Shake someone's hand, you feel, yeah, I like that person. Someone else, you shake them by the hand, and you think, ooh. Yes, well, I'll just stand over here. Someone else, you shake them by the hand, and you'll think, ha ha ha, you'll do as you're told. So you feel either equality, you feel superior, or you feel inferior. It's transmitted through the handshake. Can I have you for this demonstration, please?
Sure.
Come on out. What's your name?
Allan.
Okay, here we go. Give him a big hand, ladies and gentlemen. Good. Now, just before I do this test, what I want you to do is to shake hands with the person sitting beside you. And for the people at home, shake hands with somebody in your living room right now. Give them your normal handshake. Pretend you're meeting for the very first time. Keep it shaking. Keep it going. Hold it. Freeze it. Keep your hands together. Don't move. We're going to analyse this. Don't move a muscle. Keep those hands together. There's one of 3 things taking place between your handshake. 1 is you're transmitting equality. 2 is you're transmitting that you'll be the boss. Or 3, you're prepared to give in. Now listen carefully to this, then analyse your handshake. The person whose hand is facing downmost is saying, I'm going to be the boss and you'll do as you're told. If your palm's up, you're prepared to give in. Okay, stop holding hands. You see, the second origin of handshaking is arm wrestling. Handshaking originated like this. The winner would have palm down, the loser would be palm up. Modern man has put it into a vertical position. You can stop holding hands now, girls. So now the hands lock together. As I try to turn his hand over, he resists. So what are we left with? A handshake that's straight up and down, just the way my dad told me to shake. Good firm grip, son, keep the palm straight. He's only got to let it go just a little bit. Now, I got you, fella. Or if I give in, oh, I feel threatened by him. Now, that's why the most frustrating handshake of all, just hold your palm out flat down, is this one. Every managing director presents this to the staff. Because if I take his hand, what is he forcing me to do? Become submissive. How do you handle someone who does that all the time? Just hold it right there again. Here is the simplest, most effective way. Pleased to meet you once again. Good to see you. those women. Thank you. Who do you think are naturally the best people at reading body language? Women. Well, who thinks it's the women? Naturally the best. All the women, right? Who thinks the guys are naturally best at reading body language? Well, let's have a look at what the test with babies revealed. They got babies that were 6 weeks of age. When the baby was crying, the mothers were asked to look at the baby and determine what the baby wanted. The mothers could tell 5 entirely separate meanings behind the same cry. It was hungry, it was scared, it was in pain, wanted attention, needed his nappy changed. Then they got the father to have a look at the same baby. What do you think he saw? A crying baby. In other words, the fathers couldn't tell the difference in the test conducted. Women are born with an innate ability to decode the body signals of other people, and this is for the survival of our species. If a woman can't look at a baby and tell you from its movement and its sound what it wants, it's detrimental to that child living. Does that make sense? Women are born with the ability to do it, men aren't. And for that reason, women make the world's best negotiators, salespeople, interviewers, interrogators, personnel people. They're not necessarily found in those roles as much, but they are the best at it. And for that reason, I say to every man here tonight, because women are so good at it, if you're going to tell a lie to a woman, particularly one who knows you, do it in writing or over the telephone. Because your chances of getting away with it face to face are reduced by 60 to 80%. That's how good girls are at it. Fellas, have you ever known a woman to say something like, "My intuition says you can't believe that person," and for her to be wrong? They're never wrong, are they? Girls always get it right. Well, let's just put it to the test. Let's ask a couple of the girls here tonight if they've noticed any particular habits or gestures that their men friend have, their boss, boyfriend or whatever, and we'll see if we can get a meaning behind it. Who's got a gesture?
My husband sometimes rubs the back of his neck, like this.
Like this? This is what we call a pain in the neck gesture. That is, if somebody gives you a pain in the neck, they're referring to that tingling feeling on the back of the neck that causes you to bring your hand up and satisfy it like this. Does he do it at any particular time?
Yes, actually he does. When my mother comes around.
Anybody else have a particular gesture that they might have noticed? Yes, at the back.
My boss clasps his hands together and he puts them behind his head, and he sort of sits back in his seat when he's talking to me. It really is irritating.
Does anybody have a boss who does this at them? This is what we call a superiority gesture. If you like, when I do it, I'm saying, maybe one day you'll be as smart as me if you're lucky. The bosses love to do it at the staff. Sales manager does it at the salesman. Men love to do it at women. Girls, when a man does it at you, is it intimidating? Aha, well, let's put this to the test. What happens if he annoys you like that? When he sits back and does it, you know the best thing to do? Copy it. Now, there's 2 of you doing it. First one who changes is the loser. So after a few minutes, he gets a feeling something's not quite right and changes to this. You wish him all the best as you leave. Anybody else have a fella who's got a habit?
It's not a fella, but I have a tendency at times to twirl my hair.
Fiddle with your hair like this?
Yeah.
Every person has isolated, repetitive, out-of-context gestures that show that we're under pressure. For example, cigarette smokers will smoke cigarettes. Somebody might continually scratch their neck, pull their earlobe. John Laws continually taps his nose and twiddles his ear when he's under pressure. Now, usually those gestures show that you're either bored or you're tense. Do you do it at any particular time?
I was waiting at the dentist the other day and I did it.
Okay, what would that signify? Yeah, you're nervous. Now, there's a problem with that gesture. I must add this. This is also a gesture that's used in courtship. That is, if a lady likes a guy, one of the come-on signals she'll give him is this. Now, the problem is, do you find that when you're terribly nervous, men find you irresistible? Here she comes. Beautiful piece of womanhood. He's had a hard day fishing. Watch his body change when he sees her. How many of you have done that? Is he going to... Oh. She's gone on her way. He's doing no good at anything that day. So the first thing that happens is a physiological change. Now, we said in the last segment that when somebody gets excited by another person, there's a certain part of their body grows to 4 times its normal size. Do you know which part that is?
Eyes, pupil.
Let's put it to the test. I'd like you now to take a look at this. Here we have a right-hand picture, here we have a left hand. Which do you find the most stimulating and exciting? Put your hand up if you find the right hand the most stimulating. Most of us. Do you know that most people can in fact decode the signal that's in that particular picture? What we've done is enlarge the right-hand pupils of Kerry-Ann to 4 times the pupil size of the left. When somebody is excited by you, their pupils will actually expand. If they're negative, they're unhappy, the pupils will constrict and become smaller. And you know, most of us can decode these pupil signals and we reflect it in our speech. We say things like, it sounded convincing, but you wouldn't trust him. Did you see his beady little eyes? How many of us have used that expression? Never realised what we were actually seeing. What about cigarette smoking? You know, if I feel positive, and we'll say positive means I like you, I like what you're saying, I like being here, I feel positive about what you're presenting. Which way would you expect me to exhale the smoke, assuming that I'm far enough away from you that it wouldn't make any difference? Up. Anybody think I blow it down? Who thinks I blow the smoke down if I feel positive? Nobody. Did you realise you always knew it wouldn't go down? Who thinks I'd blow it? Who thinks I'd blow it up? Who thinks I'd blow it straight out? We've got a few non-smokers here. Let's put it to the test. I'll give you a sentence, then I'll give you the puff, you be the judge. Bob, I think what you've had to say has been excellent. When the committee meeting comes up on Tuesday, I'm going to be recommending your solutions because I think you know what you're talking about. You can count on me, friend.
I don't agree with you.
Had he better rely on me? No. He better not. What's your name?
Bob.
Bob. Okay, Bob. 2 Bobs. Bob, I think what you've had to say is certainly the right solution for us, and when I go to the board meeting on Tuesday, I'm going to be pushing for you because I think you know what you're talking about. You can count on me. Had he better count on me? He better not. Okay. What's your name, please? Cheryl. Cheryl, I've really enjoyed meeting you here at the party tonight. It's been really great. And I just wondered if you'd like to come back to my place and see my etchings. Would it be reasonable to say that most of us would assume that people who are continually in the news, like politicians, television interviewers, those whose faces we see continually, royalty, that we would expect them to be confident when they're in front of a crowd? Would that be a reasonable assumption? Yes. Okay, well, let's just have a look at a few and see what their body language shows us. How confident are they? How does their body language give them away? One of the world's best interviewers is a man by the name of Michael Parkinson. Now, Michael Parkinson is renowned for 2 things. What's the most obvious gesture that Michael Parkinson uses? Grabs his ear. When Michael Parkinson has heard enough from the interviewee and he wants to terminate and ask the next question, Michael Parkinson would like to do this. But that's not very nice. It comes out like this. He then looks away at the next question, interrupts with the next question. So it is, I've heard enough. Another one of Michael Parkinson's well-known ones is this one here, where he clenches his fists together. It's a frustration signal showing he's holding back his emotions. He'd like to say how he really feels, but can't. Let's have a look at a clip of some of Michael Parkinson's other well-known gestures. Here we see him in his typical sitting back, soliciting information. He wants the interviewee to talk, covering his mouth so he doesn't speak. Here he's leaning forward, rubbing his hands together, eager and excited, either about what Jill Rand's saying or possibly her legs. I can't be too sure about that. But he's keen. In this next scene, Darren Hinch has got him on the ropes. He's defensive, arms crossed, he doesn't want to know. Look at the angle of their bodies leaning away from each other. It's a very negative situation for Michael Parkinson. Here, he's heard enough, we'll go for a commercial break, he's saying. And in this next one, watch his hands when the madam from the massage parlour describes what will happen to Michael Parkinson when he visits the brothel. Watch those thumbs. here's how most people remember Bob Hawke. With the finger pushing forward, driving home his point. Now, all of a sudden, overnight, Bob Hawke becomes a contender for the #1 job. And he realises that the pointed finger, the karate chop, and the fist do not match the office of a Prime Minister. And he has to go through a transition to fit that role. Here's the way it looked in his policy speech. He tried the open palms. Come unto me, my brethren. Now, most Australians thought that Bob Hawke looked wrong during his campaign. Would that be a fair statement? He didn't look right because he was using the palms and it doesn't suit him. Today, he's modified that. He's modified the palm gesture and modified the finger gesture. And have a look at the screen now. Here's what we see. He's talking with an interviewer. Now, watch for his hands. Up they come. Using his hands in this position to make the point. See, when you speak like this, you can drive home your point as you would with a finger, but not be intimidating. And he doesn't have to hold his palms out, which doesn't suit him, but he still has an open palm. So he's both credible and drives his point home. And it was a tremendous transition that he went through. Prince Charles, do you think he's confident in front of a crowd?
No.
Ah. At the start of the show, we said that when people feel uncertain, defensive, they may cross their arms like this. It wouldn't look fitting for Prince Charles to cross his arms like this walking through the crowd, as much as he'd like to. So he has hidden the gesture and disguised it with something else. See if you can spot it. Here he comes inspecting the guard. I want you to watch his right hand and see what he does with it. Feeling confident now, straight for the cufflink on his left arm. Now this is what we call a disguised arm barrier. He'd love to cross his arms, but by bringing the right arm across and playing with the cufflink, he gets that same secure feeling he'd get if we crossed our arms. Now, even at the Royal Ball in Sydney, he was seen walking through with the same position. And there it is. Would it be fair if we said that Prince Charles is known as a ladies' man? Would that be a reasonable statement? Yeah. One of the things that makes him a ladies' man is that he uses printing gestures when he's with attractive women. One of these printing gestures is a favourite of many men. And this is it. Adjusting the tie whether it needs it or not. If an attractive lady walked through the door and I saw her, it might go like this. Oh, hello there. Would you like a dance? Let's have a look at Prince Charles and see how he uses it. Here he is in the crowds. Now, he hasn't noticed the attractive curvy blonde with a low-cut dress who's just behind the woman he's talking to. He's more intent on making his point by driving his finger home. Now, see what happens when he sees the blonde with the low-cut dress. Oh, hello there, and how are you? Now, all of us act predictably when our territory is invaded by other people. Our territory can include our home, our motor car, our office. And within our territories, there are sub-territories. For example, in your own home, everybody has his or her chair. And nobody else had better dare sit in it, right? Let's see what happens when we sit at a table. And can I use you? What's your name?
Steve.
Steve. Come on up, Steve. Give me a big hand. Come over. Sit down there, Steve. Here we have a scene that's at a restaurant. It could be at an office. We have a square desk. Now, here's the problem with a square desk. First of all, whenever there are sides on a table, this occurs with a square and rectangular desk, people take sides, which means we take barriers. By me sitting at this desk in this position, I have put myself in a crossed arms position in relation to Steve, and our conversation will generally be negative. Now, the research shows that there's around a 25% greater chance of me persuading Steve if we had a round table than if we have a table with sides, because at a round table there's no what? There's no corners and barriers. Now, the other problem is that when we sit here, we unconsciously divide the table into two halves, his territory and mine. Now, if I try to invade his territory, he won't like it. Now, let's say we're having a business lunch and discussing a business, and I decide I want to rattle him, get him off edge. All I need to do as we discuss business is watch closely. And business has been pretty good, they tell me, Steve. Been all right. I just push the salt shaker across. And I believe you've been doing very well too, the ashtray. And apparently you've been looking forward to getting a rise in the company. And I reckon it's... can you see what happens? You see, oh, right. Give him a big hand. Thanks, Steve. Thank you very much. Great, mate. He sits back and crosses his arms. A round table is the way to get people on side and to see your point of view. Now, personal space also extends to a certain amount of air around our bodies that we take and claim as our own. Now, in the case of somebody from a capital city, it differs from somebody from the country. Can I ask you to come up, please? What's your name?
Jane.
Give her a big hand, ladies and gentlemen. Jan. If Jan and I were from a capital city where people are fairly well packed, just come back a little bit closer. There we go. If we were from a capital city, our personal spatial need is around about 18 inches. That is, my territory is 18 inches and so is Jan's, and we will fight to protect each other's territory. What distance apart do you think we would stand when we talk socially? 3 feet. Now, if we come from the country, a rural area where people are used to more space, we have a bigger spatial need. What could it be? It could be 2 feet each, so when we stand apart and talk, we stand at 4 feet. Country people stand further away than city people. Here's the problem. Let's say Jan is from the country. She needs me to stand at 4 feet. How do I feel standing at 4 feet? Yeah, I don't feel too comfortable, so quite unconsciously I'll just step forward to the 3 foot mark where I feel quite comfortable. And that is the result. She goes back. Now, I'm too far away, so I'll just step forward again and I'll come after her. Now, any country girl will tell you that the city fellas are what? Fast! Yeah! What they're referring to is the city fella is encroaching into the country girl's space. Because I'm not trying to do a line with Jan, I'm not. All I'm trying to do is to have a conversation. Give her a big hand. Thank you. Let's have a look at something that most people identify with. Being booked by the police. How many people here have been pulled up for speeding and booked by the police? A few people rubbing the back of their neck, they're not too sure. Let's have a look at the territorial roles of each person that's being booked. Now, in this case, what's your name, sir? Ken. Come on up, Ken. Ken, I'd like you to sit up the back here. You're going to be the police officer. And here's my car. In fact, we're going to make this official. Here we have Officer Ken. And he's in the car behind me. Now, I've been speeding, there's no doubt about it. And he's pulled me over to the side of the road. Here's the normal role. Officer, come out of your car, come across. He gets out of his car and walks across to me. I wind my window down, correct? And say, Officer, was I speeding? Will he slap a ticket on me? Yes. Let's have a look at what happened from a territorial point of view. He was nice and... Come back here, don't run away. He was nice and secure in his territory. By me remaining in the car, I have forced him to do what? Come from his territory into a hostile territory. I'm now down here behind a large barrier making excuses. Here's what to do next time the police book you up. Okay, officer, get back in the car. Now, suddenly the sirens are lights, he pulls me up. The first thing is, get out of the car. And go briskly, not too fast, briskly back to him so he's not forced to come from his territory to yours. Number one. Number two is, get lower. Hopefully he's not out of the car so I can go down. Hold my palms out, no weapons concealed. Number three is, degrade myself. I'm such an idiot. Now, I never said this was easy, but it's better than getting a fine, right? And it's a lot of fun. So three, I degrade myself. I'm such an idiot, I didn't mean to be speeding. How could I have possibly thought? What a fool. Number four, raise his status to show that you know where he is. I want to thank you for stopping me. I mean, I could have hurt myself. You guys do a terrific job, you really do. You've got to be an actor, but gee, it's fun. Finally you say, you're not going to book me, are you? You reckon he can book you at that point? Well, you reckon he can? Oh, give him a big hand. Thanks, kid. Thank you. Okay. One of the places where people step into your personal space and you can't do anything about it is an elevator. And it also happens in planes, trains and crowded buses. The problem with being in an elevator is strangers are within your space and you can't do anything about it. Now there's a set of rules that we must go through when somebody gets into our space. We're in an elevator, okay? First thing is go totally blank.